Hear ye, hear ye. You've entered the First Circuit Court of Gaming Source Network, Judge Avery presiding. 2 litigants enter the courtroom today, but only one will walk away victorious and be named
Best Horror Tabletop RPG of All Time.
Insert coin, press start, and all rise.
You may be seated. Welcome to the best game of all time. My name is Judge Avery, and in this court, the only thing you have to fear is cross-examination. We're here today to settle a dispute between 2 of the spookiest storytelling games who both believe they have the rights to be called the best horror tabletop RPG of all time. Let's meet our litigants and their counsel. In my courtroom today, we have Dread, being represented by one of the dreadful dungeon masters behind the Pod of Blunders podcast. It's Nate. Welcome to the courtroom, Nate.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate the time.
We're glad to have you here. Challenging Nate today, we have Monster of the Week, being represented in my courtroom today by another of the monstrous makers who frequently guest hosts on Pod of Blunders. It's Eric. Welcome to the courtroom, Eric.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you both on the show today. Now, I will say, I've played Dread. I played it once, and it was about 12 years ago. And it's been a while. I have never played Monster of the Week, but it was really fun researching both of these this week. So you basically both have a fairly open playing field to convince me on which of these games should win. Now, if you've never witnessed a case in the best game court, here's how it works. Counsel for each litigant will present their arguments over 4 rounds. Because justice is blind, but I'm a nerd, every round will award points to the counselor that impresses me most with their argument, and the side with the most points at the end of the trial shall be declared the best horror tabletop RPG of all time. Now, counselors, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you failed survival rolls?
I do.
I do.
Let us begin. Round 1 is opening statements. Each of our guests will have up to 5 minutes to open the case for their side. The most impressive opening statement will get 5 points. I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock, and since I've never played Monster of the Week, and this will be my introduction to that game, I'm going to let Eric go first. Counselor Eric, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'm here today representing the classic indie horror game, Monster of the Week, which is built on the same system that Dungeon World, Apocalypse World, and a few others are all in. And it is unequivocally the best horror indie game out there. Dread, whatever. So for me, it is a rules light tabletop RPG that only requires D6 dice and gives players a lot of opportunity to play a lot of different types of characters. If you're a fan of Buffy, if you're a fan of X-Files, if you're a fan of Supernatural, if you're a fan of any of those shows, this game lets you kind of recreate whatever blend of those genres you want into a single story. It's easy for players to pick up. It's easy for players to engage and have a lot of fun. And unlike my counterpart over here, it also allows for you to have a longer running campaign where you could build out and do multiple sessions if you wanted to do a series and have a big finale and a big bad and all those fun things. But the game really leans into those like archetypes of what are some of those classic horror TV like tropes, who are those characters, letting you be able to play as Buffy if you want, letting you be able to play as the Winchester brothers from Supernatural. A lot of flexibility, a lot of really cool opportunities to tell fun stories. And every time that I've ever run the game, it's been a huge blast. And then, you know, people make it out the game alive usually, and that is my opening statement.
Thank you, Counselor Eric. Counselor Nate, speaking on behalf of Dread, you may proceed.
Your Honor, I noticed my opponent, for lack of a better word, if you want to call him that, if you could achieve that level one day, believes that Monster of the Week to be a classic role-playing game, even though it's only maybe 5 or 6 years old. Dread, on the other hand, came out 16 years ago and is the granddaddy of indie horror role-playing games. Now, Exhibit A, of course, this amazing book. Beautiful. It's small, and the rules can be explained very briefly. Essentially, we get away from dice. We don't need that played-out mechanic. Instead, we use a Jenga tower, or as they say in the book for copyright purposes, a falling block tower. Now, here's my modified bloody Jenga tower I use for all my games. Whenever your character wants to do something, they pull a block. If the block tower falls, your character dies. If not, you've succeeded in what you're trying to do. That's the entire mechanic. I've just taught you the entirety of Dread. That's all you need to tell. Riveting, engaging stories. Stories that are memorable. Stories that gather a crowd if you play them at a convention. Dread is truly the greatest horror RPG of all time. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counselor Nate. So, in weighing your opening statements, clearly the age of the game, that has an impact, I think. But the sheer fact that you have a bloody Jenga tower to display at conventions, I have to imagine people walking by a table and seeing that thing are going to go, "What did he do to his?" And then also realizing that nobody's actually bothering to pull anything because they're all talking to each other at the moment, or that they're all freaking out madly whenever somebody actually does go to pull it. So I think for opening statements, I'm going to have to give this one to Nate. But it's okay. There are plenty more points left to go. At the end of round one, Nate is sitting at a big 5 points, with Eric at 0. But again, we literally just started this thing. There's almost no time for you to gain points so far. It's perfectly fine. We're going to see what happens as we move on to round 2 and give you an opportunity to present your evidence. I'm going to challenge you to open debate on 3 criteria about these games. You'll be able to challenge each other on the points. And for each criteria, I'll be awarding 5 points. Now, the 3 criteria that I want you to tell me about these 3 games are the scare factor. Obviously, this is a horror tabletop RPG, so it needs to be scary. You've got to get those spine-tingling chills running up and down my spine. The second criteria will be the stories. These games come preloaded with stories and challenges and scenarios for you. And some of them are played based on very traditional tropes. Some of them are very unique to the worlds they inhabit. So I want you to convince me that the stories that they give you are the best. And then the third criteria is the play at the table. How do these games feel when you're running them with your friends? How does it feel for the storyteller or dungeon master? How does it feel for the players? What are the mechanics that make your games interesting? I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock for open debate on each of these topics. And because Counselor Eric is currently not ahead, Counselor Eric, we'll let you kick off our first criteria, which is the scare factor. 5 minutes on the clock. Counselors, you may proceed.
Yeah, I think in terms of scare factor, this game has unlimited possibility when it comes to scariness. It can be literally as scary as you want it because it is your storytelling. It is up to the GM that's running the game to be able to weave that story. When I've run this game before, you can build an entire, you are in this creepy haunted house. There's things lurking in the dark. You can set the mood with the lights being dimmed and have candles around. You
That's
can
true
do
for
the
any
whole...
game.
I'm sorry.
No, unfortunately, lights can only be turned off during Monster of the Week. I didn't know
shit.
if you knew that.
Only my game. But it has that ability. It is driven based on those games where the TV shows that are rooted in that horror, that rooted in that creepiness, that are rooted in all of that. You bring that to your players, and you can create worlds that are from with the tropes that are there. They're familiar to your players. They love the tropes. It's a little bit more,
So your claim to fame is
are there no tropes in Dread?
There's tropes in all horror, but I don't claim that as a point of a pillar of support for my game. Oh, it's so good. It uses all the tropes everyone's already loved and played out. If that's your argument, come on.
Well, what makes Dread so scary, Counselor?
Yeah, let's.
Well, I can also lower the lights when I play it, which is apparently the biggest selling point for Monster of the Week.
They come with Philips Hue branded Monster of the Week digital lights.
You can have a dead goat hanging in the background. That's how scary Dread is. You can do anything you want. Dread is terrifying because we get away from the dice. The dice are not a scary mechanic. They make a clicky clack. They're just little math rocks. You have an actual tangible thing representing the tension escalating in the game with Dread. You have that tower. And as people get more freaked out towards it, their hands start to shake a little bit. And every pull matters more because you know that every single thing you attempt is making things at the table scarier for you. It can do all the things Monster of the Week can. It can do any story you want to tell. The book itself has rules for a werewolf scenario, an alien invasion scenario, and one where there's a slasher flick scenario where the DM doesn't know which player is the killer. You find that out through the play as things fall and as people get eliminated. Monster of the Week can't do that. It just can't. Dread can, and it does it
Can Monster
brilliantly.
of the Week not do a slasher flick?
Right. Monster
Well,
of the Week
granted,
can't.
slasher flick's a different game, but you know.
Right. Monster of the Week has no ability to do a werewolf game. It has no ability to do, a slasher game. It obviously can't do any of those things.
Not scary, no. If you want to giggle around a table, it's great. It's a great giggle game.
It doesn't obviously. Monster of the Week has everything Nate's saying aside from the Jenga tower in the middle, which really is more of a gameplay mechanic than it is a scariness of the game. So you're arguing the wrong criteria right now, but that's
hard disagree.
You do you, boo. You do you. But there's still that ability to have when you for Monster of the Week, it's the players rolling all the dice. They're in control of what they're doing. They have that mechanic of you're doing a thing. Let's see what happens. And it has, I would say it has more of those consequences where you do get you're able to get away from the killer, but in the meantime you're getting slashed across the face because you didn't roll well enough. It has those the way that the storytelling going back and forth between the GM and the player, I think is a lot more engaging than even Dread, where it's I want to go do this thing. It's all right, we'll pull a block. Cool, good job. This has more of that back and forth conversation between the players and the GM, which make it more exciting for folks to be invested into the game. Nate's entire argument about what makes it scary is literally one gameplay mechanic right now.
Character creation is also better in Dread than it is in Monster of the Week. You'll have to give me that. That's the point you have to concede.
Well, we'll get Counselor, gavel, gavel. We'll get there. We have criteria for that. Counselors, at least for this particular criteria, there is nervousness and trepidation about pulling that block out of the tower, which I do agree probably fits better at the play at the table criteria, but simply for the sheer fact that Eric has created an entire product line of game-controlled lighting systems that are apparently exclusive to Monster of the Week, I'm going to have to give this criteria to him. But let's move on. You've touched on the stories that come to you with these series. So I want to give you an opportunity to tell me why the stories and the storytelling behind your title should give it the win as the best horror tabletop RPG of all time. Since we began with Counselor Eric the last time, we'll begin with Counselor Nate. I'll put 5 minutes on the criteria clock. Counselors, you may proceed.
So as I mentioned, the book comes with 3 pre-made scenarios. And those are all great and well and good. Because the rules are so small, there are rules included for how to run different sorts of horror in the game. So if you want to run psychological horror, if you want to run body horror, if you want to run those traditional, kind of soft, not too scary Monster of the Week style stories, you can run that entirely perfectly with this. It gives you the tools to create your own games. And it actually tells you how to use traditional horror elements to influence your players' moods at the table. Monster of the Week doesn't do that because it's too busy giving you a menu to choose your characters from and a bunch of different little silly moves that share at the table. So that's what's really scary is a menu.
The Cheesecake Factory looms large in the distance. Counselor Eric, tell me about the stories that you can create with Monster of the Week.
Yeah, I mean, so literally everything that Nate just said about Dread, you can do in Monster of the Week. All of that is plausible. You can do any type of horror that you want in the game, and it ranges from you can do super intense. This is a Hellraiser scenario. We're going to be fighting this kind of evil, grotesque thing. You really build up that story that you want, and again, it comes down to you in the conversation with your players and letting the story develop and letting them figure out how are the relationships? How does that relationship with the GM? What as they're telling you the story to kind of fill in some of these pieces, it really puts a lot of ownership around the table as opposed to here's 7 questions to tell me who your character is. All right, now pull Jenga blocks. It really gives you more of that back and forth. And I think when the people are more invested because they're invested in the story that you're able to weave, that makes them more enticed, more scared, more anxious about things. Because it's a collective world that people have been able to create. And again, when it comes to the storytelling, the base game itself doesn't really come with it gives you some monster options, it gives you some different things to create some things, but it's open world. You can make whatever you want. And every time I've run it, we've done different scenarios where it's again rooted in what the players are really looking for in terms of that horror element.
So let's talk about investment and how you develop investment in the game and the characters. For Monster of the Week, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've only played it 100 times and been bored every time. You have a list of things to choose from. You have a playbook, and you go through the menu and you check off little boxes. And that's your entirety of your character. For Dread, the DM creates a questionnaire for each player and says things like, what happened in your childhood that made you afraid of bugs? Or what are you suspicious about with X player here? It forces you to really consider your character, not just choose things off a menu pre-made, a pre-fee menu that you get to choose your character from. You're developing this whole. So if you want to talk about player investment and people really caring about the characters, answering those really difficult questions does that, which makes the loss of said character much more horrifying.
Does it not hurt at all at the table, Eric, when you lose a character?
Oh no, obviously Monster of the Week. If you die, it's you're like whatever, you just walk away. You have no investment. No.
Thank you, I agree.
Well, and I think the thing for Monster of the Week, and part of the reason I enjoy playing Monster of the Week with friends is that, generally speaking, your player, even though it is horror, everyone is able to make it to the end of the game together and usually defeat whatever thing is going on. There's nothing that sucks more when you're playing a tabletop RPG game and your character dies 30 to 40 minutes into the game, or something happens and your character is out long before the game is over, and now you're like, while it's still fun to sit with your friends, you don't get the opportunity to play anymore. And so while like a game like Dread or a game like I was debating talking about Slash and Flick for this, those are great games, but like people can be out of that game so quickly, and then that sucks for that person that sits at the table when you're seeing PAX East and you're sitting there watching everybody play Jenga, and you're like, well, I guess I got another hour before I get to do anything. So for me, that is nice with the characters having that more longevity in the game.
If only there were rules in Dread. I guess that's a huge oversight for the creator. Oh wait, no, they thought of that. If you knock over the tower early before the time, the DM can say you can do things, but you can't make any more pulls. So you can only do things that are on your character sheet. And you can stay in the game until you are able to exit in a story satisfying manner. It's in the book.
That's if you knock the tower over, though, intentionally.
No, even then.
No.
Even if you knock it over by accident, you can.
Well, it sounds like we're starting to encroach upon criteria 3. So we'll stop the timer here. Apparently, y'all don't get. It's fine. It's not like it's my courtroom and I've given you. No, it's fine. It's fine. The instructions, the jury disregard all of this. It's perfectly fine. No,
that's fair. Sorry, you're wrong.
It's
my opponent is a cur.
Order. So, in considering the stories here, really only one of the two of you even bothered to talk about the stories that are involved in your game. That's okay, though. I understand. But the story that you told that really frightened me was of the 718-page Cheesecake Factory menu, which we actually had for dinner earlier this week. So I'm going to give the points on this one to Nate, I believe, for reminding me of the horror of trying to choose between 6 different types of chicken carbonara. Since we've already been skirting around the table this whole time, let's move on to the third criteria, which is the play at the table. And what does it feel like to run the game? What does it feel like to play the game while you're at the table? And since Counselor Nate went first the last time, we'll let Counselor Eric go on this time. We'll put 5 minutes on the criteria clock. Counselors, you may proceed.
Yeah, for me, I find playing Monster of the Week can be, everyone has a lot of fun. Everyone is anxious playing the game, wanting to know what's going on, trying to unravel whatever horror mystery is happening. Yes, it's simple dice rolling, but sometimes when you're in those intense games and you want something scary, you want something that is unnerving, you want that, having that mechanic be simple where it's like, roll your 2d6. That's it. That's what you got to do. That's a nice way to keep things moving, keep things pacing well, keep things going. It also allows for players that maybe aren't good at Jenga, or that's not their, like, if you're not good at Jenga or you don't have the physical ability to actually play Jenga, then this game is out for you. Whereas Monster of the Week is accessible to anybody who wants to sit at the table and wants to play and wants to do that. He's already grabbing the book, so I'm sure he's got some rule tucked away on page 782 of his Cheesecake Factory menu over there. But like, it's, for me, that it also, the nice thing about Monster of the Week is it brings people into tabletop RPGs that maybe haven't been in tabletop RPGs before. No one cares about your rule book. Put it away.
As Counselor Nate holds up a blank white sheet because that's how cameras work.
Alternate rules methods.
This is fantastic, fantastic audio and video podcasting, Counselor Nate.
Thanks.
but yeah, I think when you sit around the table, people like not only is it people have a lot of fun, but people also still maintain that horror element when you're leaning into some of those familiar things that folks know. Again, and you have the gameplay that keeps it light, keeps it moving, makes it like yes, it's got a menu of choices, but that menu of choices again makes it accessible for folks that maybe tabletop RPGs have been overwhelming to them in the past. They see something like Pathfinder, D&D, whatever, and they're like, this is so much. This is a nice way for people of all kind of levels playing tabletop RPGs to be able to engage in a game that they otherwise wouldn't have been able
to. Counselor Nate, is Jenga so much more complex?
I just think it's interesting that my lovely opponent here, believes that filling out a menu for your character is more accessible than answering a questionnaire. And also, I do appreciate you bringing up the ableist risks of Dread, because that's a concern. Luckily, Epediah Ravishal and Nathaniel Barmore, the authors of Dread, we're ahead of you on that too.
Sorry, for a second I thought you were summoning a demon.
Ah, yes, Epediah Ravishal. If I could say that and he would show up, that'd be so cool. I would play with him all the time.
You have to say it 3 times in a row in a mirror in the dark, having turned off your Monster of the Week light set.
I was going to say, I can't turn off the lights. Thank you. But they have alternate methods of playing those games in case the physical abilities are a challenge for people. And,
sorry,
we want to have
I hate to interrupt you during your evidence, but I'm literally just picturing like, okay, this version of Dread, we're going to play Don't Break the Ice from Bill Bradley. And, okay, tap your ice block. Oh, God. Oh, it's almost, I mean, I don't know, like, or the thing with the penguins or something. Sorry, continue.
It's okay.
Continue.
There's a version you can play with Kerplunk. It's in the book.
It's Dread Twister.
Exactly.
Okay, right hand blue. Oh God, it's catching up to me. All right, proceed.
It's okay, Your Honor. I forgive you. It's an excellent diversion. You're very funny, and I appreciate you. And you're great.
Stop trying to butter up this court and make your point.
So last time I played Dread, we were at PAX, and after a while, the game got so intense. Everyone was standing up at the communal table, leaning over, very careful, very slowly pulling these blocks. We got a crowd around us that was like, you could hear like breaths coming in when it was their turn to pick. And people, when it fell, finally people were cheering, screaming. It was amazing. I've never had that kind of communal experience. And it was legitimately scary for the players. It was actually frightening for them. Monster of the Week is a fine game. It's not the best horror game. At the table I've played, it's very spooky for my 8-year-old and my 6-year-old. They can barely settle down for nap time after a game of Monster of the Week. That's how horrifying it is. So I appreciate that. It's a great game for children. If you want a terrifying experience at the table, at a communal table where you're able to share that experience, Dread has it hands down. Hands down.
Or blocks down in this case.
With the lights on or off.
If you're allowed to. So thank you for your arguments on this particular point again, Counselor. This one's tough because of the two, I've only ever played the one, so I would be leaning toward just simply giving it the points because I've actually played Dread, and I know that like it's very anxious and your heart gets racing, but just the sheer thought of like a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old terrified to go to bed because of a horror RPG that you put them through kind of has to lean this one to Monster of the Week because literally anybody can play Jenga. So we're going to give the points to Monster of the Week on this one. At the end of round 2, Counselor Eric has added 10 points to his score. Counselor Nate has added 5 points to his score, which puts you both tied at 10. But it's okay. We're only halfway through. We got plenty of time left to go as we move into cross-examination. We'll see how well you've been paying attention to your opponent's arguments today, as they've probably already prepared you a little bit for cross-examination. I'm going to ask you each 5 trivia questions, but I'm going to ask it about your opponent's property. So Nate, I'll be quizzing you about Monster of the Week, and Eric, I'll be quizzing you about Dread. Sounds like you've both played both of these games, so we're probably going to be fine. Each question is worth 5 points. If you don't know the answer, your opponent can steal for 3 points. Now, obviously, some of these questions, I will tell you, I'll just be upfront. I mentioned this before we started recording. Writing trivia questions for these games was really hard because at the end of the day, it's like a Jenga tower and then it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But it was really hard. So some of these questions might go a little bit like vicinity of, but I think you should be able to get them all. I think it'll be super fun, or at least you'll be able to get most of them. In the case that you can't get one or more of them, you do have the option to object to the question. All you got to say is I object to 2 out of the 5, and I will give you a hint to try to make that question easier. Now, since you are tied, I will pick one person at random, and it's you. Sorry, you. I'm going to let Nate go first. As Nate, you answer 5 questions about Monster of the Week. Question number 1. Monster of the Week is a term coined to describe a TV series featuring a different monster every week. One of the most famous of these TV series debuted in 1997 on the WB network. What is the name of that TV series starring Sarah Michelle Gellar? If you don't get this one,
Vampire Slayer. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. If you didn't get that one, I was just going to have to kick you off. There was going to be no world in which that was going to be okay.
Eric would have hurt me if I got that wrong. Eric would have actually come over to my house and beaten me.
Yeah, I would have rented a car and driven down after it was over. Just be like, how dare you?
just staked him right in the heart.
Yeah.
Question number 2. Monster of the Week is powered by an RPG system built for a 2010 game that is currently out of print, but is available for free online. What is the name of that game?
Apocalypse World.
That is correct. Good pull on that one. It's powered by Apocalypse is the big tagline that they use, which apparently is also used in a whole bunch of other games. A whole bunch of other game systems. So there you go. Shows just how little I know. All of this was news to me. So it shows how little I know about these games. I love this because it gives me an opportunity to learn as well. All right. Question number 3. You're doing great. Perfect score so far. No objections used. Question number 3. The term Monster of the Week was originally coined by the writing staff of a popular fiction anthology TV series from the 1960s. What was the name of that series that ran from 1963 to 1965? And had a similarly popular remake decades later?
The Twilight Zone.
I'm sorry, that is not correct.
Oh, I know
Counselor
it then.
Counselor Eric, can you steal?
Oh.
Popular fiction anthology series in the 1960s.
Yeah.
It's one of the 2.
Yeah. And I can't give you the hint because the hint is it was not the Twilight Zone.
Yep.
Granted, it's not even I couldn't give you the hint because it's not your question.
Yeah, I don't have it. Sorry.
I'll take another shot for 1 point.
Take another shot. You can't get the points, but I'll give you another shot.
It's the Outer Limits.
That is correct. The Outer Limits. I figured the popular remake would also throw you off a little bit, but
that's good.
It was. All right. That's okay. We still have 2 questions left to go, and you still have both of your objections. Evil Hat is the company behind Monster of the Week. They published a supplement in 2019 called Tomb of Mysteries that included 29 new mysteries and 4 new Hunter playbooks. Which of these is not a playbook in that expansion? The Hex, the Searcher, the Archivist, the Gumshoe, the Pararomantic. Thinking through picturing that book on a shelf. Okay, using the objection, which makes kind of sense for this. The Hex and the Gumshoe are 2 of the included playbooks. So your remaining options are the Searcher, the Archivist, and the Pararomantic.
The Archivist is not included.
The Archivist, are you 100% on that?
Nope, but that's what it is.
Because you're right. The Archivist, that is correct. The other ones are included. What is a Pararomantic, Eric? Like, what does that do? What is that about? Is it somebody who falls in love with ghosts?
Yeah, generally. I mean, well, like that's like, I mean, it's also like Buffy adjacent, right? Like Buffy, like the characters are falling in love with their paranormal counterparts. Xander with Anya. But yeah.
So scary, Eric. Oh my God.
It's
How
so
can you even
scary.
stand it?
Romance and love.
All right.
I'm shaking.
Let's keep going with question number 5. This is what I call the impossibly difficult question. So we'll see if you get this right off the bat, but maybe you'll use the objection. Monster of the Week was actually the first outing by New Zealand game designer Michael Sands. His second game is a card game set in the Neolithic era. What is the name of that game?
Objection. Yeah, I don't know that one.
Okay. If you count the number of Demon Slayer shooter video games from id Software, you might get this title.
Oh, of course.
Like, that's perfectly helpful. Thank you for that.
I'm pretty sure.
I think it's id Software.
It's definitely Tomodachi Life. That's what it is.
I'm I'm gonna say no on that. It's my friend Pikachu. No, Counselor Eric. Counselor Eric, can you steal?
It
sounds like the hit didn't help you either.
No, I think if you count the numbers, so we're gonna go with 10. We're just gonna say 10.
Unfortunately, the number's a little too high, and you missed half of it. It's called 3 Dooms, because Demon Slayer video games, and then 3 of them, 3 Dooms. There have been more than 3 of those games, but it's fine. 3 Dooms. That's okay. You still added some points to the board. At the end of cross-examination for Counselor Nate, Nate has added 15 points to his score, putting him at a fantastic 25 points. But Counselor Eric, you still have 5 questions of your own in your own cross-examination on Dread. Question number 1 about Dread cross-examination. Dread
This is going to go terribly. This is going to be so bad.
Don't interrupt the judge. It's not good.
Psyching himself up already for this round.
It's going to be great. I'm going to be great.
It's going to be amazing. You're going to be fantastic. I assure you. Dread question number 1. Dread uses a very unique mechanism to determine success or failure of your actions. What is the name of the Jenga tower? No, I'm kidding. That would be a terrible question to ask you. In pulling blocks from the Jenga tower. What board game company is the current owner and distributor of Jenga?
Ooh.
If you name a very big board game company, you'll get this.
Right, Hasbro.
That is correct. I was about to say, did I make the first question too hard? That would have been real bad on my part. That would not have boded well for the rest of this episode.
Like, Eric, can you answer this very simple question about board games? No, I cannot.
They make Monopoly, Transformers, Nerf. Like, give me something. Okay. Number 2. In the instance that it doesn't make sense for your character to die on a failed pull at that moment, what is the term used to describe the state you are in? Also, you may know it from the TV network AMC, the state that you stay in until you do end up dying at another narrative moment. I butchered my own question. It's literally written right there in a document in front of me. And I'm like, what's the tower with the name and the place AMC with the TV that you do?
Walking Dead.
That is correct. Walking Dead. And then later we'll kill you off. Very good. Very good. Perfect score so far. Let's see if you can keep it up. Question number 3. If you start to pull a block from the tower, but you believe you are going to end up toppling the blocks, you can choose to stop, and your character will fail their current action. What is Dread's official term used for the decision of not completing your action? You do have your objections remaining. You might want to save them. You might not. You might know this.
I know that if I don't get it, I know that Nate knows it. Like, I can see it on his face right now. He's waiting for me to
you
fail.
can't see his hand moving, but he's flipping through the pages of the book right now. He's going to be like, on question 415, paragraph 3, it says.
Yeah, let's take an objection.
All right. A building which has been vacated and left unoccupied could be called this.
Abandoned.
And so the full action would be
Abandoned pull.
That is correct. Abandoning the pull. Good use of the objection there. And you still have one remaining if you need it. Question number 4. In the scenario of Dread called Beneath the Full Moon, the player characters are portraying college students on a whitewater rafting trip who are going to be hunted by a werewolf. If I'm not mistaken, I believe. I shouldn't be mistaken. I literally researched these questions in advance. Each of the PCs has a different college major. Which of the following is not one of the majors of the PCs in Beneath a Full Moon? Again, they have to get harder. I told you I struggled to come up with these questions. They have to get harder. You got a 1 in 5 chance here, okay? Philosophy, engineering, fashion design, music, or economics? You still have your objection if you need it. You might want to save that for the last question. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe-
Well, no, because if I use the objection, and you're like, it's not these two, then that just gives Nate 3 options instead of. Well, really,
it's
give him
almost as if
2.
you know how this question is worded.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with music.
And you are correct. Good. Good. Yes. Yes. And there is indeed a fashion design major on that trip. Nate, did you know that offhand? Or are you
Not at
cycling
all.
through them in your mind? There you go.
Nope.
Fantastic. And yes, the hint was going to be philosophy and economics are already taken. So it would have just brought it down to 1 in 3. But still, hey, 1 in 3 chance. Still pretty good. All right. Question number 5. You still have your last objection left as we come to the impossibly difficult question. And it is ironic that it is called the impossibly difficult question because the publisher of Dread is a company called The Impossible Dream, which is a reference to a 1972 musical by Mitch Lee, Joe Darian, and Dale Wasserman. What is the name of that musical?
The Man of La Mancha.
Didn't even need the hint. Just took it right off the bat. 5 for 5. Perfect cross-examination. I will tell you, Counselor Eric.
Collusion! This is collusion!
Right off the bat.
Blatant collusion! I want to see the notes!
Oh my gosh.
Hold on, let me do this properly.
With the clack fan and all. Just
Well
ready
done.
to go.
Well
Ready
done.
to go. Oh, Counselor Eric. Yes. Yes, Queen. Yes.
Man,
Didn't even need that. That's fantastic.
Hey,
that
that's
was
beautiful.
you earned that one right there. This I will tell you, I will also tell you, you have set a milestone today on best game of all time. First perfect cross-examination round in the series. So congratulations, Counselor Eric. At the end of that round, Counselor Eric stunned 15 more points. 25 more points onto the board, bringing him up to 35 points to Counselor Nate's 25 points. Y'all made it easy for me. No steals means I don't have to do like math in terms of 3. So that's great. And 5s are just easier to deal with.
You're welcome, Your Honor.
I'm so delighted by that. My hint was like, it's a musical based on Don Quixote. And so on and so forth. Have you seen Man of La Mancha, or did you just have that one ready to go?
I haven't seen the production. I know some of the music from it. And there's
I Don Quixote, the man of
there's actually a clip of Jennifer Hudson doing the Impossible Dream on the UK Voice. Like someone's like, can you just sing anything randomly? And she's like, sure, I'll do the Impossible Dream. And then she just gets up and like belts it.
Amazing.
Very, very good. So good. All right. Fantastic round of cross-examination. And that brings us to round 4, your closing arguments. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you, none of the rest of that show matters because you have one final chance to plead your case, and the winner gets 50 points and is declared the winner of the case. However, Counselor Nate, you are behind at the moment. So we'll give you the opportunity to plead your case one last time for why Dread should be considered the best horror tabletop RPG of all time. Counselor Nate, you may proceed.
I'm a little shook after that one, not going to lie. It's up the board on me. So I've played
It just
both games.
pushed your tower over right in the
Yeah.
middle of the episode. It's fine.
Maybe I'm the Walking Dead.
You may proceed.
Or maybe the real court cases the friends made along the way. And I think that's important to think about.
You were already oh, wait. Okay. I love you guys. Yeah.
So I've played both games extensively. They're both good games. They're both wonderful games. I've had a lot of fun. Eric's run some games of Monster of the Week for me. I've run Dread games for him. We've had a good time. If I'm looking for something scary, if I want something atmospheric, something that's really going to terrify me, I want a game that its mechanics back that up. Like the implicit part of the game that makes the game run is inherently scary. It's a terrifying mechanic. Monster of the Week is a fun game. It's one of the best role-playing games because Apocalypse Engine they make good games. They're fun. They're easy to get into. All of the points Eric made were correct for a regular RPG. For a horror RPG, I want to be scared. I want to feel my heart race. I want to feel that tension mounting with every single block pull. You can't get that with dice. You can't get that with, seeing what kind of spooky alien is doing the mystery at the high school. You can't do it. Dread is a horrific and horrifying and upsetting game. The stakes are high, and they're always high. They feel like they're just getting worse and worse with every single pull. So for me, there's really no debate about the best horror game. If it was the best RPG in general between the two, Eric might be closer. But for just horror, Dread takes it every single day, hands down.
Thank you, Counselor Nate. Counselor Eric, your closing argument for Monster of the Week. You may proceed.
Yeah, I think the things that my co-counselor over there talks about are right. Like you want when you're playing a horror game, you want something that builds that pressure, that builds that anxiety, that builds that tension. And I think while yes, Dread has a mechanic that it can do that, I think playing Monster of the Week, playing with some things that are familiar to folks, being able to tell that story collectively, I think the real strength of Monster of the Week is that anyone can do it, anyone can jump in, and it really relies on the storytelling of the game. It forces the GM to really tell a story and not rely on a tower of blocks to build the anxiety for your players. It really pushes you to tell the better story, to push your players a little bit more, to have those moments of creepiness of what's around the corner, of doing that in a way that your players have been able to do it in an accessible way, so they can create their fun character from whatever show that they've always loved. They've been able to play it, and you can still build that tension. And we've done it really well. And I think again, the quickness of the pacing with dice, quickness of the gameplay, really allows it to move forward in a way that you don't have to stop and pause and wait for something to happen. You can kind of keep the story moving, and be able to pull that tension from the players by the way you're telling everything.
Thank you, Counselor Eric. Counselors, you have made a lot of compelling points during our episode today that have given me a lot to think about when it comes to rendering my verdict. I'm going to tell you a story. When I was a wee kid of 10, 11, 12, however old you are in middle school, we had a character dress-up day, a TV show dress-up day. And me and 7, 8 of my friends got together and dressed up as the characters from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, at that time,
awesome.
I didn't own the blonde wig that's in the box to my right now. Don't ask. But I did have a nice little suit and tie. So I came in as Giles. We had another kid who didn't really get the whole fact that you can't have two people at the same time. So he wore a leather jacket and came in as Ripper. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer was one of the most seminal television series of my life. The Monster of the Week genre is built into my heart as the door creepily opens behind Counselor Eric.
That's my cat.
Okay, that's adorable. That is adorable. That said, I have played Dread. I have DM'd Dread actually, and we had the lights off, despite the fact that we didn't own the Monster of the Week official light set. Yeah. We had candles lit. We had some creepy music playing. We played the sleepover story where you wake up in the haunted house as children, and the feeling, the inner, like the turmoil that your body goes through watching that tower wiggle and knowing that you're one pull away from that whole thing just falling over and your character dying. And even then, Counselor Eric made the point that, okay, then you're out of the game. I don't think that applies to Dread, because at Dread, you're still sitting around that table feeling that tension every time somebody goes, you're leaning around the block saying, no, don't get that one. That one looks like it could be loose. And you're still there. You're still involved in the game. So when it comes to what is the best horror tabletop RPG of all time, that's where my head is at. That said, it's Pride Month when this episode is coming out, and Queen over here slacked the clack fan, got the man of La Mancha, and this queer kid from Tennessee is feeling it right now. So the best horror tabletop RPG of all time is Monster of the Week. Case closed.
Well done.
Oh, counselors! Oh my gosh, this is one of the funnest episodes that I've recorded so far. I have to say, this is absolutely fantastic. Counselor Nate, if people want to find you and the shows you do online, tell them where they can.
You can always find me on Twitter at Pot of Blunders, all one word, or potofblunders.com. Or if you really like my stuff, patreon.com/potofblunders.
All about that Patreon dollars. We're
All
like,
about
it's for us, it's a click the join down below. That's what we do. Counselor Eric, if people want to find you on the interwebs, where can they go?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitch. So I stream under the name Falcon Wizard, or you can find me on Twitter under just my name, which is Crumrine, ECRUMRINE. But Twitch has all those links as well. But yeah, I've been streaming on Twitch as Falcon Wizard.
Fantastic. You can find yours truly, the Judge, online at Charm City A, because I live in Charm City and my first initial is A. You can find us at the best game of all time, the First Circuit Court. You can join us right here on Twitter at Gaming Source Net for the network, at Best Game Pod for the pod. And you can join the jury, be a part of the jury at Best Game Pod, and take a vote on the jury duty poll for this episode to tell us if you think I made the right call today. And tell us which you believe was the better horror tabletop RPG at all time. Counselors, so good to have you in the court today. This was an absolute delight. If you think you're the best game of all time, there's only one way for you to win that case, and that's right here in my courtroom on Gaming Source Network. Court is adjourned.